it's Natasha.
And Khalil.
And we are the co-hosts of
WokeNFree.
Thank you for tuning in to our 32nd episode of WokeNFree. If you've been tuning in every week for WokeNFree Wednesday, you know that WokeNFree is all about being real and honest with each other and you. We talk about everything and anything that's important to us, to you, and the world, and nothing is off the table. Now, in this episode, we're talking all about the book Creator Hate by Dan Norris. But before we dive deep into that subject, we have a couple of ground rules to cover. First, have you subscribed to WokeNFree on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, Google Play, YouTube, SoundCloud, and iHeartRadio? If not, please subscribe. We greatly appreciate your love and support for our show. Secondly, have you shared an episode with a friend or a family member? If not, sharing is caring, guys. Make sure you share. And then, of course, please talk to us on social media. You can find us easily on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at WokeNFree. And we have something new. We added a brand new section on the homepage where you can submit a scenario for us to discuss during our scenario time. So definitely submit your scenarios on WokeNFree.com over and over and over again. And we can't wait to check out the scenarios that you want us to chime in on for the show.
Each week, we like to share a little bit about us before we dive into the topic for the episode. Last week, we shared what is your favorite season. This week, we're sharing what is our favorite movie about aliens.
Interesting. So, when I was thinking about this, I was like, oh man, what is my favorite film? I guess I go back to the classic, like the Alien series, because I think that I've deeply loved Sigourney Weaver, and I think it's not every one of the movies like rock in the series, but as a whole, it's just a really beautifully artistic way of showing how humans are very vulnerable. So I'm all about it.
Which movie then exactly?
So that's what I'm saying. I guess I like the second one. I like the first one. I like the whole series. I also like the spin-offs with Sanaa Lathan. I like this series of Alien and going through that, especially with the Predator as well. But not one particular one. I just like the series.
Okay. Mine is a lot different than yours. Mine is Independence Day. The one with Will Smith, because True. I don't know, there wasn't any other films like this before where it was kind of like, it was a devastating idea, but it was a fun take on it. Was a fun execution. You were still laughing, you were crying. I liked all the ups and downs of the movie, and it was a generally fun movie and could kind of seem realistic even at points.
Absolutely.
And this was like one of the few movies that I had to own when it came out on VHS, if people know what that is. And it had like the 3D cover on it, where if you tilted it,
yes,
it changed motions. Like
and
I watched this movie multiple times, so I did as a child. I definitely loved that movie.
True,
and then still now, I think it still stands the test of time. I'm talking about the original Independence Day, the one with Will Smith, not that remake. I never saw that, the ID4 or something.
Throwing shade,
but
so
Independence Day, the original, no shade, but the original was really. That's a classic end of the world alien movie. Classics.
Absolutely. It was phenomenal. So before we dive into the episode, I actually wanted us to do something for people who have shown us love and support. And I'm talking about some of the people who've given us reviews on WokeNFree for iTunes. And specifically, we're talking about Minutia Man, Dip Fong, and Matt Kirshner. So thank you for your love and support and kind words, and we greatly appreciate how much you care about the show, and just keep tuning in. And if you haven't given us a review, definitely do, so that we can shout you out on WokeNFree. Exactly.
Oh.
So I think now with that, we will keep this train going, and we're going to dive into the subject for today, which is the book Creator Hate by Dan Norris.
What is the book Creator Hate all about?
Okay, so for everyone who hasn't read this book, you definitely, after this conversation, I know you're going to have to check it out because it's just an amazing book. And I would say so there's a lot that's covered in the book, even though it's not that long, but Samuel Thomas Davis actually sums up the book in 3 sentences. He says, most of us want to make something, but for any number of reasons haven't. Hate works against our creativity and stops us from making things. Hate can be controlled and overpowered. And this definitely is lifted from kind of what you will read in the book, and you can read his review on WokeNFree.com where he goes in on a greater detail about kind of the book summary. But for me, after reading the book, I would say you gain an understanding on how to stop being unnecessarily negative, and you know who you are. And if you don't know who you are, read the book and maybe you'll get your life together. Secondly, understanding why people prefer to tell other people how they're doing something wrong instead of actually having the courage to go out and do it themselves. Again, you know who you are. Get it together. Get your life. And then thirdly, understanding how amazing people's lives would be if they would just stop rationalizing their nonsense or quote unquote excuses. And again, get your life and live it the way that you say you want to. Those would be the 3 things that I primarily took from the book. But how about you? How would you summarize Create or Hate?
Well, I like one of the quotes from the book that gives a sort of summary on it. The quote goes, "There are people who make things happen, there are people who watch things happen, and there are people who wonder what happened," by Jim Lavelle. Yeah, I like, that just kind of like explains it all. That shouts out everybody in the world.
Facts.
You fall into one of those categories, right?
Yes, for sure, absolutely.
But for me, the book, a summary in my idea is that the book goes through the process of telling people what's stopping them from following their dreams and how to actually get started right away, on that path. It says everything comes down to either fostering negativity at other creations or focusing on creating something of your own. It points out what causes us to be negative or hateful and what helps us to be creative. So the book doesn't just tell you why you're not creating. It gives you some nice pointers on how to get to that point of creating and what you should do in your life to make yourself more creative.
Absolutely. It is. It's a guide for kind of what to do, what not to do. Like I said, get your life. Essentially. What would you say were the greatest lessons that you learned from the book outside of what you were already just talking about?
I learned that the biggest setback for achieving your goals is negative criticism and perfectionism. We often rationalize to only put our idea out when it's exactly as we envision, perfect down to the last bolt. That's just putting up a roadblock that actually stops you from creating, because you always have the excuse that, oh, this isn't perfect, so I can't release this. We have to realize that perfectionism is just a dream and that you just have to go and actually start. And another quote from the book sums it up well. It's better, and this is by the author himself, Dan Norris, it's better to create something that others criticize than to create nothing and criticize others. Ooh. Again, pointing to the creating and then the people who don't create and like to talk garbage and junk.
Absolutely. Nonsense. Display of nonsense. Yes. I love that. I love you. So Dan Norris, again, for everyone listening, it's better to create something that others criticize than to create nothing and criticize others. That is like literally like tattoo that to your body somewhere. Like that's amazing. Oh my gosh. For me, I would say, growing up in my Jamaican family and culture, and also just like being from New York, which is definitely not the state of happiness. Let's call a spade a spade.
Wow.
I would say that it seemed to be very common for people to go around and constantly criticize, constantly tell other people whether they thought something was good, bad, or ugly, and not even think twice about it. And to be honest, even with social media, things haven't gotten better. Not that I'm blaming social media, but it's just that people feel even more liberated to talk that smack, right? As much and as often as they want, with a tweet, with a DM, anything that they want to do. And, I just wonder why we as people think that it's okay to be constantly judging, constantly mocking, shaming, and really dogging each other out.
There's no repercussions. That's why.
Exactly.
When you do it online.
Exactly. You can be that online bully, that computer coverage.
The internet's like your shield, so it gives you're protected from this person, from being in person and getting physical or anything, or having like even verbal altercations.
Exactly.
You just type something and then you just walk away.
Exactly. But, what kind of world would it be if we actually did better things with our time, if we actually stayed in our own lane and focused on what we were doing and not worrying about what other people are doing and what they're not doing? I mean, what would that mean? And so for me, the greatest lesson I learned was that I even needed to take a step back, because as a Virgo, shout out to my Virgos, sometimes we can be, aka all the time, we can be very critical, right? And we can be very judgmental.
Yes, ma'am.
Right, exactly. So what if I stopped, right? What if I spent a day focusing exactly on what I thought and what I needed and what I was interested in, and I wasn't like, oh no, this person didn't do this, and oh no, like, what kind of a day would that be? So that's what I took from the book, that like the minute my mind goes down that path, I have to just say create or hate, and get my life together, get it together, Tasha.
Get it right, get it tight.
Listen, would you recommend the book Create or Hate by Dan Norris to other people? And if so, why?
All right. Well, not only do I think this book is a quick read, but it's straightforward. I think the book would be great for everyone, but especially for those internet trolls out there who waste their times and others with their hate. Maybe it can enlighten them to a better path where they can make something instead of spreading hatred. But also it'll help. The book is helpful to others just to learn how to ignore the trolls and spend time doing something they love instead of engaging these idiots out there.
No shade there, yeah. But I think you can actually throw shade at trolls.
That's the whole point. Yeah.
But
the whole purpose is just to waste time and block creativity.
Exactly. I completely agree. I think this book actually should be read in every school in America and beyond, the globe. I think he did a really great job of giving people a succinct way of calling them on their beep, right? Like, just like, stop, like, enough is enough, right? And even Samuel Thomas Davis, from what I mentioned a little bit earlier, he mentions, the main principles that you will take away from the book comes down to successful people make things. The world would be a better place if we create what we want to create. Hate stops us from making things, which is similar to what Stephen Pressfield calls resistance in the war of art. And hate can be controlled, managed, and overpowered. And to conquer hate, accept its presence and recognize it every time it rears its ugly or hideous head. These, again, who wouldn't benefit from reading that type of information? Who wouldn't benefit from taking a deeper assessment of their lives and saying, I think I'm hating instead of creating, and I need to stop?
Do people love to hate over create?
When I think about that question, I think about, literally like the word hate versus create. And like, so even from a broader perspective of not just like I'm, hating on your project, but like what motivates people to hate other people. And actually I found a recent article on Psychology Today. Shout out to Psychology Today. There are actually like 5 common reasons why people actually hate other people. And it comes down to like fear of the other, fear of ourselves, lack of self-compassion, it fills a void. And, and I'm sure that other reasons can kind of creep in here and rationalize this terrible behavior. But ultimately, I think that people do prefer to be more negative than positive, because as we've discussed earlier in the show, not this show, but other episodes, that people have a negative bias, right? So I think we are hardwired to kind of be in this negative space, and we have to like reverse engineer it to be positive. It actually takes work to be positive. So I think the answer is yes, but that doesn't always have to be the case, because ultimately, to love or to hate, to accept, to embrace, these are all choices we make. And if we, as easy it is to decide to hate something, you can take a moment and think about what you're doing and think about the intentions of where you're going with things and decide, am I going to make that bad choice or am I going to make good choices? And like, people, we can make good choices.
I think people love to consume, and this is what fuels our society. But one of the problems is that hatred can be born out of this need to consume. Either jealousy or overconsumption can cause people to hate and also complain. Complaining is the opposite of creating, and there seems like there is way too much of it. That's why I also like the book's mantra of being grateful for what you have and seeing everything in your life around you.
Yes, gratitude always. Yep. Did you have any issues with the book or things that you didn't like? We love you, Dan Norris, but you know, to be woke and free is to talk about all sides of the coin.
Yeah, I didn't have any issues with the book, but one thing people need to be aware of before reading this is that there's some colorful language occasionally used. Not a lot, but young kids might get a little excited about reading it.
Oh yeah,
in certain parts.
I'm such a sailor. I like totally forgot about that.
Okay. Not all books are like this. You probably don't have this in elementary school. Listen, or you can, but it might be to edit it. I don't know.
You better get woke and free. You better get
the federal government liberated. See what they want to say about that.
I mean, listen.
It's okay for high schoolers. In high school, I know they're okay with it, but I don't think they're gonna let little kids read this.
So your phrase is, "This is for children?"
Yeah, it's a good question. That is the question indeed.
These kids know a whole bunch of stuff that parents would rather not discuss, so I think they'll be fine with colorful language.
So this is a great bedtime story for the kids then,
right? You
right?
better get your life, yes.
Especially some of the chapter names.
You better get your life, yes.
Okay, you read that to your 3-year-old. And then they ask you what it means. You're just like, it's a good word. Just don't ever use it in school.
Come at me, bro.
And don't use it in front of me.
We digress.
That's all. That's the only thing that I found with the book, though. I was okay with it. Everything that was taught in the book, though, was great. Okay. All the little mantras and their quotes, I liked them.
For me, I completely agree with you. I personally had no issue with it. I think this book was everything. After I read it, all I said to you was, oh my God, Khalil, you have to read this. So it was everything. I would say that if I took a step back for myself and thought about, well, if someone else was reading this, what would they think? I would say that negative people or people who don't see themselves as negative but clearly live in that negative conundrum would probably question some of the principles or could argue, well, there's value to seeing the negative, right? You shouldn't put your head in the sand. You've got to be pragmatic. You've got to be practical. All that nonsensical rationalizations people say to just literally be Gollum in their world is maybe they might not like it, right? True. And they might be like, well, this is an oversimplification. I love people who love to complicate things with just negative nonsense will always find something, right, to have issue with. But other than that, if you're not trying to be a complete curmudgeon in life, I think you'll be totally fine with it. That's where I stand with it.
Here we go, yo. Here we go, yo. So what's the scenario? Scenario 1. Ari has worked hard on his father's farm for all his life. The farm mostly produces corn, and he figures they can maximize their profit if he institutes a new AI-controlled crop tender. He's thought about bringing it up to his father, but is afraid he'll disappoint him if it doesn't fully work. Mm-hmm. What should he do?
Okay. So this is, okay, I gotcha. So, I mean, I think that in life, and it's interesting, I was just having a similar conversation about this subject, not necessarily farm equipment, because I am not a farmer, but idea
you do work on AI from time to time.
Or that, no.
Oh, you don't do that? Okay. I was mistaken.
Not currently.
I've seen you in our hidden lair, but all right.
Gotcha.
That's something else.
Gotcha. Stay focused, love. I would say the idea of do you kind of step out on faith on something even if you don't have a full picture of if it will work, if it will not work, right? Is your idea too crazy? Is this radicalness worth the investment, worth the leap? That's pretty much what I was addressing. And I would say at the end of the day, the answer is always going to be no unless you ask the question. So maybe, if he thinks it's going to help maximize their profits and it's going to take their business and their what they're doing to the next level, you never know until you try. And worst case scenario, right? Write it off as a tax issue. That's what I think. What do you think?
That's interesting. It depends on how far along he is. Like if he hasn't done any testing at all, I mean, I think he should maybe, I don't know, get like a small plot of land and try it out there first, and then bring it up to his dad. It really depends, because I know the book says you just got to start and do things, but sometimes
you just gotta get out there.
But I don't know. Sometimes I feel that you can get out there, but you can do like little tests before you take that big leap.
Yeah, you have a soft launch, and absolutely. I mean, I think we're both agreeing the fact that you can't sit on something and be like, "Oh, you shouldn't sit on it, though. This could work, but I don't have 100% confidence. Oh no!" Like you've got to actually
try something.
So maybe it's a soft launch, and he tests it on a small piece of plot, or asks a friend, "Hey, are you open to me doing this?" But you've got to do something. You can't just sit there and then be like, I had that idea when I was 20 and now I'm 70. Like, no one cares, right?
Yeah.
Like, no one cares.
Scenario 2. Ross feels he is bettering himself by watching loads of financial TV shows with his friends. He has such an air about himself that he loves to tell his friends how the people on TV are making constant mistakes and how he would do so much more if he had all of their money. Is Ross doing anything wrong, or is this a classic case of an armchair entrepreneur?
Well, you coming for several people in that scenario. I can't with you right now. Oh my goodness. He just said, get your life. Okay, so yeah, a couple of mistakes being made, and I do this all the time. I'm not going to name the channel, but there are certain programs that I watch where I am not necessarily pleased with the talent that is chosen. So definitely you're coming for me in that example. I understand. And then,
not intentionally.
Oh,
These are scenarios that stand on their own.
I bet, my love.
They are.
The other issue the other mistake that this Ross is making is that commentary of, oh, if I had their money, I could do so much, right? If I, that's garbage, guys. We've got to get real about ourselves. If you're going to talk about the ifs of what you could have and guess what? Why don't you get what you're complaining about that you don't have and then go and make those decisions? But if you're only going to be ready in a presupposed moment based on certain factors or certain alignment with stars, you're talking smack and no one wants to hear it, and you're probably going to lose your friends eventually because people do get tired of nonsense. So I think Ross should stay in his lane. If he's such a financial guru, he should start his own TV show or his own series, put his information out, put out a book, start a tour, and get everyone behind him. And then he'll have his little money to do what he supposedly does. And if he's not willing to do so, then maybe change the channel, since you're getting so irate about what these other people are doing.
But as he changes the channels, he's going to see more financial shows, and he's going to have more comments about it. And how they could be doing better.
Well, he might need to pick up a book and read. He might need to learn Mandarin. He's got to figure out something. But if he can't handle the world, because people don't say things exactly how you want them to say it. People don't do things exactly how you want them to do it. But if you can do better, then do better. Otherwise, stay in your lane.
So I just thought about this. But what would be funny is if he did kind of like, well, people are doing this on YouTube, is if he just did reactions to the TV shows he's watching and his friends filmed them, and then people can comment on his reaction to the TV shows, because then he'll see, do people agree with him, or do people say, hey man, you should shut your mouth. I think that what Ross should do is film himself commenting on these TV shows and put it up on social media, whatever platform that is, and then see how people react to him, see what the comments say, because then that might bring him back down to earth, and people kind of point out his faults. Since his friends obviously are just letting him go on and on. How about we have the world comment on his comments? That's what I think.
That's interesting, because that's kind of a twist on creating and hating at the same time.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting kind of combination. If Dan Norris ever decides to do a follow-up book, I would love that creation Haitian.
Yeah. To create out of hate.
Yeah, like, can you, create out of hate would be an interesting follow-up. Shout out to Dan Norris if you're listening. Thanks, you know where to give your credit, guy.
Scenario 3. Your friend Letty is what you'd call a bright person. She is great with reading people and has steadily grown her following on social media in a short time span. She's not afraid to boast about her skills and her nice sponsorship she's earned. Sometimes you think she's never wrong. Is there anything wrong with Letty's current path?
Well, that's a very broad question. First of all, I think I always tip my hat out to, as a content creator, we're content creators, everyone's a content creator. I think that it's great when you're killing the game, right? When you're succeeding on social media, which is in our golden age of entrepreneurship, it's super duper important to be able to master that for your own personal development as well as professional or your own business. So I think it's great that she's doing that. Boasting about her skills and sponsorships. I mean, I think, again, what is your intention? Where are you coming from? Is this coming from the place of like, look at me, I'm so cute? Or is this coming from a place of like, look at me and I can show you how to do this and like, take my course, let's do this webinar, right? So I'm from the example, I'm not quite sure what her full intention is. Just by sharing your accolades, is that wrong? No, it's not wrong. But if you're sharing it to shame other people, if you're sharing it to piss off other people, I think that's not necessarily the best space to be in, but it would depend on what her intention is. What do you think?
Well, if you remember what I said, I was saying that sometimes you think she's never wrong. So what that implies is that when she speaks, she feels that she's always right. Like she comes off
very
as
confident then.
Yeah, like super confident, where sometimes you actually don't know if she's wrong because she's just so confident that she could be saying something that's wrong, but you would never know. So
is that wrong? You're suggesting?
Yeah, is that wrong to be
super duper confident?
To be so confident and have such an air about you that you don't care what everybody else is doing. You have blinders on. You're doing your own thing, and you just you boast about the great things you do and how great you are. And I don't know. To me, I don't see gratitude there. I don't see her. Yeah. I would like to see some like her thanking people who got her to that point. There, things like that at least. Not just saying, "Oh, you're the greatest and you can do anything and you'll never get knocked down."
Interesting.
Because then eventually the saying. You hear that saying that, oh, how the mighty have fallen. When I think that can happen in this case because she's so mighty that she doesn't notice like her little things that she's doing wrong, and then that can really just screw everything up.
Well, nothing lasts forever. Yeah, and at the end of the day, so it's interesting though because I think with social media, everyone kind of creates this persona. I mean, I think you should be as natural and authentic as you can be and should be, but some people believe that they want to create a personality, and that's the personality that they live through in their social media. And if she's coming off as like, I'm the social media guru and my beep don't stink, then maybe that's why she would be behaving that way. But maybe in her personal life she's a little bit more toned down. I think that wouldn't be something we haven't seen in our society and in reality television. Is it the right thing to do? No, I think always having a little bit of humble pie, always being grateful for the information you've learned and for the people who've supported you, right? Because again, your social media can't succeed unless you have followers to follow you, right? So you've got to always look back and be like, hey, love y'all, thank you. So I mean, I guess in that, and as you've explained, she could take a little bit more humble pie and she could
tasty,
get your life.
True.
Oh my goodness, we are at that time again. It is coming to the end of our 32nd episode of WokeNFree. Oh my. We had quite the time talking all about the book Creator Hate by Dan Norris. Thank you, Dan Norris, for writing such a wonderful book. And we thoroughly enjoy talking about it. I know everyone listening is going to get their lives together if they haven't already. And you probably haven't, because that's what life's all about.
Ups and downs.
Listen, it is a journey for real, and the struggle is real. But we keep moving and we keep learning. And I think we both agree that this book will help the journey a lot more, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
It's probably something to keep in your library.
Go back to it. Absolutely. So now, will I leave you hanging for what our next episode is going to be about? Drum roll, please.
On our next episode, we will be talking about self-love with Tanya Cardinales. So make sure you follow us on social media to follow along in the conversation. And make sure you tune in next week for WokeNFree Wednesday to join the conversation at WokeNFree.com.
If you want to be a guest on the show, make sure you submit a topic for an upcoming episode or share how you feel on something that we've already covered and you want us to hit us back up on that subject. Again, where do you go? The contact us page at WokeNFree.com. If you want to holler at us on social media, which I definitely want you to do because you know who's going to be answering. And I'm gonna see your messages. Khalil's gonna see your messages on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at WokeNFree. And like we said earlier, if you want to submit a scenario for us to weigh in on in scenario time, you've got to go to WokeNFree.com to do so. And again, if you haven't given our show a review, we greatly appreciate your love and your honest opinion. So please give us a review on all the platforms that we're on. You can find us on WokeNFree.com to give us our reviews. And you never know, you might be shouted out on WokeNFree.
If you didn't already subscribe, please do. Share the episode. Make sure you come back to join the conversation every Wednesday for WokeNFree Wednesdays. Until next time,